All right, so get this. Imagine Charles Darwin, the father of evolution, on the brink of becoming a priest.
Yeah?
You heard right, a priest. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into Darwin's autobiography to uncover the unexpected experiences and passions that shaped the man behind groundbreaking science.
What's often overlooked is how seemingly unrelated interests can be crucial stepping stones to incredible discoveries. So today, we'll see how Darwin's journey from a beetle-obsessed kid to a world-renowned scientist was anything but straightforward.
Exactly. So let's rewind all the way back to young Charles. He was an avid collector, obsessed with beetles, even inventing new ways to catch them. Now, any casual bug enthusiast can relate to the thrill of the hunt, but Darwin's passion ran deeper.
It's fascinating how this early dedication to collecting foreshadows his later meticulous approach to scientific observation and categorization. Those years spent meticulously documenting beetle variations were essentially training for the kind of detailed data collection crucial to forming his groundbreaking theories.
It's almost like those beetles were his first foray into taxonomy. And speaking of youthful enthusiasm leading to some interesting consequences, there's this hilarious story about him spotting a rare beetle, and in his excitement, he popped it in his mouth.
Thinking he had found a third, even rarer species, and wouldn't you know it, the beetle squirted acrid fluid, and he lost all three.
Oh, no.
A valuable lesson learned, perhaps, about the importance of careful observation, even if it came at the cost of a mouthful of beetle juice.
Definitely not the scientific method in action.
Yeah.
But it does show the drive for discovery was there early on. He also loved taking these long, solitary walks, getting lost in thought. This might seem like a simple childhood pastime, but it actually hints at the development of his contemplative nature, the same kind of deep thinking that would later fuel years of meticulous observation and analysis.
And those walks weren't just, aimless wandering. He was absorbing the natural world, noticing patterns, and asking questions, essentially laying the groundwork for his future as a scientist.
And I have to mention this anecdote, one of those seemingly insignificant moments that might have sparked a bigger idea. During one of these walks, he was so lost in thought that he actually fell off a wall. But here's the kicker. He was more fascinated by the rush of thoughts he experienced during the fall than by the fall itself.
A slightly painful yet insightful experience into the workings of the human mind. It's like his brain, even in those moments of surprise or even danger, was already wired for observation and analysis.
It makes you wonder if that experience somehow primed him for the intellectual leaps he'd make later on. Now, you might be surprised to hear that this future champion of the interconnectedness of all living things was also a passionate and zealous hunter.
It seems paradoxical, right? But it actually reveals a complexity that we often miss when we view historical figures solely through the lens of their most famous achievements. Darwin himself acknowledged this seeming contradiction, describing his love for hunting as almost a religious zeal.
He was incredibly proud of shooting his first snipe, and his dedication to the sport was intense. Imagine his poor college tutor thinking someone was constantly cracking a horsewhip outside his window. Turns out it was just young Charles practicing his shooting.
Again, we see that dedication and focus traits that undoubtedly served him well in his scientific pursuits. It's a reminder that seemingly disparate interests can sometimes cultivate skills applicable across diverse fields.
This passion for hands-on experience, however, contrasts sharply with the formal education awaiting him. His experience with traditional schooling, heavily focused on rote memorization of Greek and Latin, was largely a disappointment. He actually thrived when introduced to chemistry by his brother. They even set up a makeshift lab, staying up late conducting experiments.
This hands-on experimental approach clearly resonated with him, far more than memorizing verses. And this isn't just a fun anecdote about sibling bonding. It highlights the importance of finding learning environments that spark genuine curiosity and allow for active exploration, something that traditional education often lacked.
And speaking of learning environments, Darwin had a brief stint studying medicine at Edinburgh. But like many of us who've sat through a less than thrilling lecture, he found dissections disturbing and the lectures tedious. He even dozed off during a lecture by a renowned surgeon on the immortality of the soul.
Proving even the most acclaimed experts can sometimes fail to captivate an audience if the subject matter doesn't resonate. But more importantly, Darwin's experience raises a question about what if his passion for hands-on learning, ignited by that makeshift chemistry lab, had been nurtured earlier on? Might his path have been different?
That's a great point. Now, despite not taking to medicine, there was a silver lining to his time in Edinburgh. He discovered a love for marine zoology and even made a small but significant scientific discovery.
Yes. He meticulously observed the larvae of a marine invertebrate, the flustra, and correctly deduced that the cilia, or hair-like appendages, help them swim freely. This seemingly minor discovery, published in a scientific journal, actually challenged the prevailing belief that these larvae were permanently fixed. It was his first foray into original scientific research, a taste of the thrill of discovery that would later define his life's work.
So even before the Beagle, we see glimpses of the meticulous observer and independent thinker he would become.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Beagle, I had to share this almost comical story about how his nose almost cost him a spot on the voyage.
Yes, the infamous nose incident. The Beagle's captain, a firm believer in physiognomy, the idea that you could judge character by facial features, was convinced Darwin's nose shape indicated a lack of determination.
Whoa.
Thankfully, other factors outweighed the captain's nasal prejudice, and Darwin secured his place on the expedition.
Can you imagine missing out on that life-changing opportunity because of your nose? Talk about a close call. Now, are you ready to set sail with Darwin on this 5-year adventure that would ultimately change the course of scientific history?
Absolutely. I'm eager to explore how this voyage, as Darwin himself put it, provided the first real training or education of his mind, shaping him into the scientist we know today.
All right, so picture this. Young Charles, nose deemed sufficiently determined, boards the HMS Beagle. He's surrounded by the vastness of the ocean, exotic landscapes on the horizon, and a world teeming with life unlike anything he's ever encountered. What he didn't know was that this wouldn't just be a voyage of geographical discovery, it would be a journey of intellectual transformation.
This voyage exposed him to the incredible diversity of life on Earth, a diversity that would challenge existing scientific theories and ultimately lead him to question the very origin of species.
The geological fieldwork especially played a crucial role in shaping his scientific thinking. It wasn't just about collecting rocks and fossils. It was about learning to observe, record, reason, and predict.
Through meticulous fieldwork, documenting the different strata and the fossils found within them, he was able to piece together the history of the landscape. It honed his skills in critical thinking and scientific analysis, turning him into a geological detective of sorts.
He describes how initially a new geological district appears utterly hopeless, a complete chaos of rocks. But by diligently applying those skills he'd been unknowingly honing since his beetle collecting days, he could decipher the secrets hidden within the Earth's layers.
It's like he was solving a giant, intricate puzzle, and this experience laid the groundwork for his later groundbreaking deductions about the natural world.
Now, while exploring the world, he also devoured Lyell's Principles of Geology, a book that absolutely revolutionized his understanding of Earth's history.
Lyell's work was radical for its time. It challenged the prevailing view of a young Earth, shaped by sudden, catastrophic events. Instead, Lyell proposed that slow, gradual processes, over vast stretches of time, what he called deep time, were responsible for the geological features we see today.
This concept of deep time was absolutely crucial for Darwin's later theories. It expanded his thinking beyond the limited time frame previously accepted by science and opened up a world of possibilities for how life on Earth could have evolved.
Exactly. It's like Lyell handed him a new lens through which to view the world, and through that lens he could see the potential for immense change over unimaginable periods. It paved the way for him to consider the possibility of species gradually changing over time, eventually leading to the diversity he was witnessing on his voyage.
And then, of course, there were the Galapagos Islands. This archipelago, with its unique collection of plants and animals, became a living laboratory for Darwin. Knowing his later work, it's fascinating to see how the Galapagos presented him with a living puzzle of variation, essentially showcasing natural selection in action.
He observed finches with uniquely adapted beaks, tortoises with shells shaped by their environment, and marine iguanas unlike anything he'd seen before. Each island, despite their proximity, hosted distinct species, with variations perfectly suited to their environment. The Galapagos became a microcosm of evolution, a place where the forces shaping life on Earth were laid bare.
It's like nature was presenting him with a challenge. Can you figure out how these pieces fit together? And that challenge, sparked by his observations in the Galapagos, would become the driving force behind his life's work, leading him to unravel the mysteries of evolution.
The Beagle Voyage, far more than just a grand adventure, became the crucible in which Darwin's scientific mind was forged. It provided the tools, the experiences, and the burning question that would lead him to develop his revolutionary theories on evolution and natural selection.
We've seen how Darwin the explorer and budding scientist was shaped by these experiences. But what about the man behind the science? What were his personal struggles, his joys, his doubts?
That's what we'll delve into next, uncovering the human side of Darwin. A side that's equally fascinating and surprisingly relatable. Darwin, despite his groundbreaking work, was a deeply human figure with his own joys and struggles and contradictions. His personal life offers a glimpse into the man behind the science.
For instance, he was a devoted family man who cherished time with his children. It paints a very different picture from the stereotype of the solitary, detached scientist, doesn't it?
It certainly does. It reminds us that even those immersed in intellectual pursuits find solace and inspiration in human connection. Family life wasn't just a personal joy for him, it also informed his scientific work. He meticulously observed his own children's development, noting their expressions, behaviors, and even their earliest attempts at language.
That's so interesting. He was essentially conducting mini experiments.
Yeah.
Within his own household. It seems his scientific curiosity extended even to the most intimate aspects of his life.
Yeah.
But he wasn't this infallible figure confidently striding from discovery to discovery. He actually battled insecurity and self-doubt throughout his life, even as he was achieving remarkable things.
Yes, and his struggles with self-doubt are particularly striking, considering the boldness of his scientific ideas. He often worried about the reception of his work, fearing ridicule from the scientific community, and the potential backlash from those whose religious views clashed with his theories.
It humanizes him, doesn't it? Knowing that even someone who made such paradigm-shifting contributions to science wrestled with those same anxieties that many of us experience. And here's something that I found particularly fascinating, his love for literature. Despite devoting his life to science, Darwin was a voracious reader, immersing himself in all sorts of subjects, especially poetry.
His favorites were Wordsworth and Coleridge, romantic poets known for their celebration of nature and their exploration of human emotion. It highlights how even the most analytical minds find value in the arts, recognizing that different modes of thinking can enrich our understanding of the world.
It makes you wonder how this love for poetry, for language that evokes emotion and imagery, might have subtly influenced his scientific writing. Perhaps it contributed to his ability to present complex ideas in a clear and engaging way, making his work accessible to a wider audience.
That's an insightful observation. It challenges the stereotype of the scientist as solely focused on data and logic. Darwin's engagement with literature suggests a recognition that creativity and a sense of wonder are also essential components of scientific discovery.
Absolutely. And beyond his intellectual pursuits, he was also known for his kindness and generosity. He was always willing to help fellow scientists, sharing his research and offering guidance to younger colleagues.
This speaks to his character, doesn't it? It reminds us that intellectual brilliance is most meaningful when coupled with compassion and a desire to contribute to the greater good. He understood that scientific progress wasn't a solitary pursuit, but a collaborative effort built upon the shared knowledge and insights of the scientific community.
Now, as we approach the end of his life, his rather poignant note of regret that emerges from his autobiography. He lamented that he'd let his love for music and poetry atrophy, prioritizing his scientific work above all else. What do you think fueled this feeling in him, given his scientific mindset?
It's a question that invites us to reflect on our own priorities and the choices we make along the way. Perhaps even in a life as extraordinary as Darwin's, there's a recognition that certain pursuits, even those we deeply value, may fall by the wayside as we focus on our primary endeavors. It's a reminder that even the most driven individuals experience a sense of loss for the paths not taken.
And he went even further, speculating that if he'd continued to engage with music and poetry, he might have prevented those parts of his brain from declining. It's almost like he was conducting an experiment on himself, observing the effects of neglecting certain aspects of his intellectual life.
It highlights the interconnectedness of our mental faculties and the importance of nurturing the full spectrum of our interests and passions. Perhaps he was suggesting that maintaining that balance between rigorous scientific inquiry and the exploration of art, music, and literature is crucial for a fulfilling and intellectually vibrant life.
His story reminds us that even the most brilliant minds are shaped by seemingly insignificant events and personal passions. It wasn't just the Galapagos finches or the years of meticulous research that made Darwin the revolutionary figure he was. It was also the beetle collecting, the solitary walks, the love of poetry, and the moments of joy and struggle that make him so relatable.
Absolutely. His journey underscores that our personal interests and experiences, even those that seem unrelated to our work or goals, are all part of what makes us who we are. They can shape our perspectives, fuel our curiosity, and ultimately contribute to our own unique contributions to the world.
Darwin's regret about neglecting music and poetry really struck a chord with me. What are your thoughts on that, and how do you think it connects to the idea of cultivating a diverse range of interests?
His regret is a powerful reminder to nurture the full spectrum of our interests and passions, even as we pursue our primary endeavors. It suggests that, exactly, and this is particularly relevant in today's world, where we're constantly bombarded with information and often pressured to specialize in narrow fields. Darwin's experience suggests that there's value in resisting that pressure and cultivating a broader intellectual landscape.
His story is a compelling argument for becoming what some might call a polymath.
Yeah.
Someone who's knowledgeable and competent in a variety of fields. Now, I don't think we all need to become experts in everything, but maybe the key takeaway here is to maintain that childlike curiosity, that willingness to explore and learn about things outside our immediate areas of expertise.
I completely agree. And perhaps by embracing that approach, we can not only enrich our own lives, but also bring fresh perspectives and innovative solutions to the challenges we face as individuals and as a society.
So what stands out to you as most surprising about Darwin's life outside of science?
I'm particularly struck by the depth of his self-doubt. It's a reminder that even those who make groundbreaking contributions to humanity can grapple with feelings of inadequacy and insecurity. It makes his achievements all the more remarkable, knowing that he persevered despite those internal struggles.
Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Would Darwin have made those same groundbreaking discoveries if he hadn't allowed himself those moments of pure enjoyment, those detours into the world of art and literature?
It's a question that resonates with all of us who strive for balance in our own lives. It suggests that maybe it's not about compartmentalizing our interests, but rather recognizing their interconnectedness. Perhaps those moments of artistic contemplation, those seemingly unproductive hours spent lost in a poem or a symphony, are actually feeding our creative spirit and indirectly contributing to our most significant work.
It's like Darwin was hinting at the importance of cross-pollination between different fields of thought, allowing ourselves to explore seemingly unrelated areas. It can spark new ideas and lead to unexpected breakthroughs.
Exactly. It challenges the notion that we need to be laser-focused on a single path to achieve success. Maybe it's those detours, those moments of intellectual exploration that ultimately lead to the most profound insights.
So, if we zoom out and consider the implications of all this, what can we learn from Darwin's life and his regrets?
I think it's a call to action, a reminder to cultivate a more holistic approach to life, to embrace the full spectrum of our intellectual and emotional capacities. We shouldn't limit ourselves to narrow definitions of success or productivity. Instead, we should strive to nurture those aspects of ourselves that bring us joy and wonder, even if they don't seem directly related to our professional goals.
It's about recognizing that our personal passions and experiences are all threads in the tapestry of our lives. They contribute to who we are, how we think, and ultimately what we bring to the world.
Precisely. It's a reminder that life isn't just about checking off boxes or achieving external markers of success. It's about cultivating a rich inner landscape that allows us to engage with the world in all its complexity and beauty.
We highly recommend seeking out Darwin's autobiography. It's surprisingly witty and insightful. You'll discover a relatable human being behind the scientific icon, someone who grappled with self-doubt, cherished his family, and found solace in poetry.
His story reminds us that even those who make history-altering discoveries start as curious individuals with diverse passions and experiences. And by nurturing our own unique blend of interests, we too can make our own small contributions to the world, whatever they may be.
Now, before we wrap up this deep dive into the life of Charles Darwin, I have one final thought for you to ponder. Darwin expressed a longing for music and poetry in his later years, wondering if engaging with them might have kept those parts of his brain active. This raises an intriguing question. What activities or interests have you perhaps put aside? In the pursuit of other goals, might revisiting them bring a renewed sense of joy and creativity to your life, perhaps even sparking new discoveries in your own personal and professional endeavors?
That's something for you to explore as you continue your own journey of discovery. Remember, the path to a fulfilling life isn't always linear. Embrace your curiosity, cultivate diverse interests, and never stop exploring the world around you and within yourself.